Hey guys, so I did not expect to upload a video so quickly, but I was just kind of perusing what's out there, if there's anything interesting to react to, and I saw that Liz from Big Ed and Liz Lore did an interview recently, and so I listened to it, and I have so many things that I want to say. But actually, I never thought I'd say this. I really feel like I connect with her pretty deeply on a lot of the themes that she touched on just based on my own experiences. So I figured this could be a video where I talk a little bit more about some of my own experiences, but just share some of the stuff she's been learning from her, thank goodness, hopefully final breakup with Ed. We'll see. So, okay, let us transition. There we go. Oh, but now I have to... Okay, I'm still learning this. Anyway, we got this. We're fine.
Well, word around town is that you have a new boo, a new boyfriend. I know we can't go into all the details, but I'm curious, what was his response when he learned that your ex is Big Ed?
He, like, the truth? Can I tell the truth?
Yeah, tell me about
He said,
relationships are our
Of
biggest
course.
teachers.
Oh,
Yeah.
right,
And
this
in
is the start of the
32,
video.
You've experienced 2 failed marriages.
Yes.
And a failed engagement.
yes.
When you look back at those relationships, is there a pattern that you notice or that you
Yes.
recognize? What is that?
I love red flags.
Liz, you're looking good, girl.
Does she love I mean, it's one thing to love red flags. It's another thing to be a red flag. And I think sometimes we have to ask ourselves the honest questions of like, sorry, I'm still figuring this out. Am I kind of also a walking red flag? Is it not just the other person maybe? But yeah, anyway.
Post-breakup glow up.
Yes.
You look great.
Thank you.
All right, well, you wanted to come here mainly to tell your side of the breakup with Ed. What is the most important thing you want people to know about your side of the story?
I think my side of the story is that it had a lot to do with the way my daughter was treated over taco pasta. Ed made dinner taco pasta, but then Riley's dish was just way too spicy for her. And Ed pretty much just told her, stop being a baby.
So I have a couple things that I want to mention.
I grew up always on the bigger side as a kid. I was always slightly thicker, big boned. That really continued.
I don't appreciate that. And
Didn't expect that. Okay. Yeah, something that I've noticed in terms of Liz's speech pattern is I feel like she does in some ways speak a bit immaturely. She, to me, comes off as someone who is likely very intelligent, but she mentions having to grow up early, and I think she had her kid when she was really young. So I do wonder in some ways if like part of her processing kind of got stunted, similarly to what I think may have happened with Colleen, obviously Gypsy. I feel like sometimes when people experience a really life-altering event at a really young age, there's a part of them that just stays young. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's true for Liz, but I also commend her, and I hope she really takes this seriously. I commend her for wanting to focus on her daughter's well-being. We're going to hear in a second, she is dating someone again, and I don't know that that's super wise. I know I've seen comments in the past where people are very concerned about how she's really just focusing on dating in her own life and not focusing on how it would affect her daughter. So I really hope that she does start to think through that lens more. And I'm encouraged that she seems to be starting to think more that way, hopefully.
out on it, then he attacked me back, saying, look at you, you're crazy and everything. We literally ordered our wedding bands the day before taco pasta.
Yeah.
And a lot that had happened this night was Ed was supposed to watch my daughter. I was taking my real estate test, and then it just was a lot coming home to like no help cleaning the house, intoxicated family members over, calling my daughter a baby over taco pasta, and then me defending her, and then sticking up for her, and then me kind of getting chewed out for it. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that happened.
That's really sad. And something, I mean, she basically all but said this. I mean, it's not the taco pasta. Everyone now, I'm realizing, like in interviews, people are talking about taco pasta a lot, and that's kind of a euphemism. And I think this is true for a lot of different dynamics. Same with Colleen and Eric. It's like, it's not really this thing. It's all of these other things, that now this thing is the straw that breaks the camel's back. This thing is the thing that epitomizes all those other things. And I'm sure, everyone, it's not that that's a secret, but it's just interesting. The taco pasta really is whatever the word is, for extremely unhealthy dynamics that lack a lot of love. She shouldn't have to defend her daughter to the man she's dating. I mean, that's just such an unhealthy dynamic, and my heart breaks for her daughter. Absolutely breaks for her daughter. But anyway.
Taco pasta night.
Yeah. Well, despite him being rude to
She's so
Riley,
pretty.
your daughter, and calling off the wedding without telling you,
Yesterday, I received a text message from our bishop telling me how sorry he was that the wedding was called off. Ed canceled our wedding without even telling me.
you still wanted to be with him, Liz.
I know.
Why? We all want to know why.
Trauma
I
bonding.
think once you get comfortable in a situation, it's hard to leave.
You don't want to be
Oh.
anybody else.
Yeah, so when pause. When I saw this, it was just like, oh my word, flashback to my own experience. So, I mean, it's true. A big lesson I had to learn is being comfortable is not necessarily the same as being safe. And so a lot of times in these toxic relationships, I don't like the word toxic, it just seems overused to me, but in these toxic relationships that people fall into, sorry, I don't like how my hair looks, they get used to it and it becomes their normal. And especially if they grew up in a really toxic family environment, it could be the only real form of relationship they've ever known. And so they equate normalcy to this is just life. This is safety. This is what I can expect. This is what I look for. It's just my natural. And extremely unhealthy dynamics can be that. They can coincide. And that was the same for me. So when you're used to something and comfortable within something that's unsafe, your brain doesn't always register it as unsafe. And then the whole I don't want to start all over again, that was a conversation I also had of just like, oh, it seems so stressful to start this all over again. Can't we just make this work? I believe we can make this work. I don't want to look for anyone else. Yeah, it's just, I related to so many things.
I was actually paying rent on an apartment still out here to make sure I kind of had a backup in case something didn't happen. And I actually gave up that apartment officially 1 month before the wedding. So it kind of was a lot thrown in my face. I stayed in this relationship.
I mean,
because I just...
she shouldn't. If you're planning on marrying someone, there should never be a situation where you have a backup living plan. That means you don't really fully trust them, as she should not have really fully trusted Big Ed. And you shouldn't be even considering marriage. Doubts should never happen in marriage, period, but there should not be any massive doubts right before a marriage happens. Like, pause, call it off, whatever you need, just don't keep, yeah, so that really shocked me that she had that living space. And then when she said it all just kind of got thrown back in her face, it's like, well, the tough love reality is she was choosing to be in a very unhealthy situation where it felt like this all got thrown back at her, but she could have avoided it and not had any of this happen. So, but when you're used to the unstable, your brain doesn't register it.
Like, Ed and I were attacked and bullied so much in our relationship that they think that our love wasn't real, and it really was. So I just kind of wanted to fight for that. And also I wanted to fight for him. So
No, and that's another point I wanted to make. When your partner does not actually, truly care about you. Now, people can say they care about each other, they can be convinced they care about the other person, but when the other partner is consistently taking actions over and over and over that basically destroy you, and you keep giving them chances and chances and chances, that partner does not love you. And that was another hard thing. I had to learn so many hard lessons. The person that I had convinced myself I loved and I tried to make myself believe they loved me, they didn't love me. They couldn't love me. And it was very evident with their actions, but I just could not get to accepting that for myself because it's very painful and humbling. And then women or men in this type of really unhealthy dynamic, we misconstrue a lack of willingness to accept reality as clinging on to hope. And so I told myself, I just have hope. I have hope. I believe in it. I believe in it. And there is hope that's founded on reality. And then there is clinging on to an impossibility that we misname, whatever. Words are not happening right now. Hope that we mislabel when it's not really hope. It's just a false reality that we're refusing to accept as a false reality.
What do you mean when you say that?
People are like, oh, are you with him because, like, are you a gold digger? Do you need money? Mind you, I've worked. I'm the only one who worked throughout our whole 3.5-year relationship.
So sad.
The only one?
The only one. Like, Ed did not have a job when I met him. I was the one who wanted to move to Arkansas. I was the one who wanted to start fresh. He didn't want that in the beginning. I pushed for it. So to like give up everything and like have to come back has been really hard. My daughter's involved. Like it's a whole different emotions of not wanting to go back.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wanted to stay with them, but I also know that I'm a people pleaser. And
Oh, there we go. That was another big thing. I'm sure part of a lot of this is in her effort to try to provide stability for her daughter. She just didn't want to uproot her yet again. So she was just kind of like people that don't want to divorce an abusive spouse when they're doing it to try to keep a spouse in their kids' lives. That was probably the situation with Ed as well, where she knew, she's like, I keep getting into these unhealthy dynamics. I can't keep putting my daughter through this, so I'm gonna make this work. And sometimes it's like, no, that's worse, as sad as it is. And I feel like she said something else that I forgot, but anyway, maybe I'll think of it. She did.
invested so much.
Oh, people pleaser, people pleasing. That's another thing. So I think societally, maybe all around the world, people pleasing is looked at as kind of a positive-ish thing, but definitely in America, when people say, oh, I'm a people pleaser, our immediate reaction isn't, oh, you poor thing. Like, our immediate reaction is like, oh, I feel you, or we kind of almost think like, oh, that means they're a really nice person, and they just have a hard time saying no, but they're a really great person. And I mean, obviously, I want to believe everyone's wonderful. Not always true, but being a people pleaser actually means not knowing how to set one's own boundaries. And a lot of people don't realize that in order to have a healthy life and have a life that is in the long run successful and not filled with, toxic relationships and heartbreak and all of that, the only way we can get there is through setting very firm boundaries, which Liz is actually going to get to in a second. But being a people pleaser means I just want to make everyone else around me happy. I want to make sure I'm not upsetting anyone. I want everyone to view me in a really positive light. And it's actually a form of manipulation. When you really look at it for what it is, it's doing whatever you have to do, squelching your own personal thoughts and convictions at times to make sure that their reaction to you is a positive one. And I do think, not always, but a lot of times this is also a trauma response. If, as likely with her situation, if someone grows up with a lot of instability, their brain tells them, to create stability, I have to make everyone else around me happy. That's the only way I'm going to have stability, which is people pleasing, which is not good. So it's just so convoluted.
I saw a lot of people in the comments saying, Liz, take care of you.
Yeah.
Go to therapy.
Yeah.
Have you done any work after this breakup? Any inner work?
So the first 2 months after the breakup were the absolute worst. And that is where I was like, okay, now I need to get myself together. I've done therapy. I have worked on myself so much. I got back into health and fitness right away.
And it's a continuous process.
It is a continuous
I'm sure.
process. I have put so many boundaries down and I don't let people cross those anymore for me. Ed can be a very charming person.
Oh, and that's going to be such an interesting thing to get into. So I really hope that she's truly, really, truly doing all of this for her and not as a, like, I want to get back at Ed, because they've just gotten back together so many times. I don't yet fully believe that they're done with it. We'll see. But yeah, I really hope it's not just a stick it to the man. Because personal growth, especially after a breakup, really has to come from an inner peace, like a place of peace, inner peace, and just saying, okay, where did I go wrong? What do I need to learn? And how do I become a healthier version of myself for me, first and foremost, before I can even output anything to anyone else? And then, yeah, she's about to get into how Ed is a really great guy. And since I'm talking, I'll just keep talking right now. So that's another thing that I really had to learn. I think she's going to say that later on at some point, she'll say he can be a good friend, but not a good person in relationships. And that is very true. I grew up in a very conservative, sheltered Christian realm, and the complexity of humanity was just not something I ever actually understood or learned or was taught. People really didn't talk about emotional abuse or toxic relationships because it basically just was either shoved under the rug or people didn't run into it in our circles. I have no idea. But it was all so new. And so the idea of, oh, there could be someone who presents in this, that, and the other way to their friends, to their family, and they really like him and they really he seems like a really great guy, then clearly he's going to be a great person to date. And it's just the two don't always coincide. Someone can do a really good job of playing the role, possibly, of, you know, the devoted son and the close, solid friend and the mentor and the whatnot, but actually realistically be a very unstable, insecure person deep down inside, which is what eventually will inevitably be seen in relationships. Romantic relationships pull out a side of people that no one else will ever understand or see. And so people like Big Ed have the ability to do nice things and come off positively while internally actually being impossible to be in a relationship with and extremely damaging for anyone that does enter into a relationship. And it might seem shocking to the people that don't know them in the relationship context because it can seem impossible, but it's not impossible. Oh no.
Did help me with my daughter, and I go to pick up Riley after like an 8-hour shift. She didn't want to come home. Like, Ed's doing her nails, Ed's like feeding her. Ed tends to also spoil a lot. He would take her out to like,
which could be him
the
trying to get
mall,
love,
to like walk around, or times he would come in to visit me at work and he would bring a pack of Uno cards. Yeah. And then I take my break. So he was a very, very, very helpful person. Just over time it changed.
Well, they're not.
And sorry to cut her off. I mean, I do believe that people in Ed's scenario think that they're doing well and are trying to take the actions of being a good partner, but there's a difference between doing all of these actions out of a place of security within oneself, knowing who they truly are and being confident and comfortable in themselves versus I want to be this person for this other person, so I'm going to try and figure out what I need to try to do to be this person, but it doesn't come from a place of stability or even realism, if that makes sense. And I think that's it. I think in his head, he's trying to play the loving father role to her daughter and trying at times to be the good boyfriend, fiance, whatever, to Liz. But it's not I am, it's I'm attempting. There's a big difference.
Viewers who think Ed is a horrible person. In hindsight, now that those rose-colored glasses are off for you, what do you say to those viewers?
I think that Ed is a good friend. I don't think he's a good partner.
Yep.
I don't think he'll ever make a great partner.
Right,
But I do
right.
think he is a good person. He does truly want the best for himself, but he only loves himself. So
Yeah, and that's the crucial part of it. And I mean, whether he's a good person or not, yeah, whatever. He wants the best for himself, and he claims to want the best for others. But the reality is, and I think people in these situations they have a very hard time seeing themselves realistically. Like when she said that she wasn't sure if he'll ever be able to find love. I think anyone and everyone technically can, but some people are going to have to basically be completely deconstructed as an individual and just basically not recognize themselves anymore to then be rebuilt into an actually healthy person. And that's terrifying. The actual process is extremely painful and terrifying. Like within my own learning process, I had to unlearn and relearn and reconstruct and name and label and study, and I'm still learning how to get over certain trauma responses. I mean, it is a sometimes brutal process to actually be capable of turning into someone who can be in a relationship. And I think people a lot of times like Big Ed, I lost my train of thought. They think they want the best for themselves and others, but they only want the best for others if it benefits themselves. And many times I don't think people in his shoes recognize that that's what's going on. But if your good does not benefit me and I am going to have to sacrifice something about myself for your good, I'm not interested in doing that. Maybe once or twice, but consistently throughout the rest of my life, no, I can't do that. That's basically Big Ed. He wants his best, his definition of his best, which then keeps him from being able to remain in these relationships because there's always going to be something that makes his brain go, I could get better. So then he starts looking for the next better thing and the next better thing because he's defining what is best for him, even though he doesn't have any idea what that is. And he's refusing to ask himself, what makes me the best for someone else? How do I learn to peel away all of my ugliness to then learn and grow and become a healthier foundation for another person to be able to be supported through, if that makes sense.
For him, there's a reason why he's been single for such a long time. So, and if I couldn't even change that and I never gave up one time, I don't know who can.
Yeah. Well, apparently now he's looking for a Christian woman.
I want a conservative, conservative Christian woman.
Why?
That's what I'm looking for.
Christian
Why?
women are taught to be submissive.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't be shocked.
So what's your advice to the
I
next
hope-
person
I
who
hope
dates
it's
Ed?
Just run.
He told you to do that.
If you ever meet anyone like me, just run.
Ed, please take Ed's advice on that. Wow.
Yeah, and when I heard this, it was like, oh my word. I actually have experienced that. If you are dating someone and they say to you, basically, you probably shouldn't be with me, but aren't sitting there saying, you know what, you shouldn't be with me, I'm not healthy, I'm going to end this. They're just like, you shouldn't be with me, and then just letting you decide. That is a very good indicator that you shouldn't be with them. Take it from someone who knows. So when I heard Liz say that, I was like, yeah, it's, and then people like her and who I was, people who are like, oh, they just don't see the beauty inside themselves and I can be the one to help them see it. They just need someone to push them along and help them see it. No, nope. That is not our role ever, ever, ever. That is their responsibility. And if they refuse to do it, they refuse to do it. So, yeah. Whew.
Well, word around town is that you have a new boo, a
Yeah.
new boyfriend. I know we can't go
Very
into all the
soon.
details, but I'm curious, what was his response when he learned that your ex is Big Ed?
He, like the truth, can I tell the truth?
Yeah, tell the truth, girl.
He said, if I ever speak to you the way that Ed has ever spoken to you, you better go tell my family and walk away from me right away. He said, I don't ever have to worry about
True. Very true.
feeling the way that I did and that he'll always grow with me as a person. And he's actually been by my side and allowed me to heal and grow as a person without asking me to change one thing. He allowed
That's
me to go through every emotion. When he found out, it was
That's really, really, really good. And that reminded me of my own husband. And I'm going to try not to cry. That was what drew me to my husband, first and foremost. I mean, aside from the fact that we share very similar, spiritual views, recognizing that through my own choices, but also through the actions of another person, I had a lot of pain that I was still having to learn to work through fully. I thought I had, and I think in some ways I had done it as much as I could outside of being in my next relationship. But entering into another relationship, I do really believe that there is a level of healing that inherently has to happen within the next healthy relationship after being in an unhealthy one, just because, you can heal on your own and you need to do as much work as you can towards that. But then entering into a relationship means choosing, am I going to trust this person? Are they trustworthy? Can I trust myself to find someone who's trustworthy? And that kind of level of healing and learning to trust again can't really fully happen outside of a relationship. So I think it's excellent. It reminds me very much of my husband that the man she's with, whomever he is, said, this is a safe place for you to heal. And I'm not going to ask you to not do certain things. If you need to talk about something, if you need to cry about something, if you need to process through something, do it. Whatever you need, you are free to do it, and I love and embrace you for who you are and what you've experienced no matter what. That's exactly who my husband is and was, and that was just life-changing for me. Like the moment that I realized I was truly safe with him was more or less, I mean, it's not that I knew immediately, but more or less the moment that I knew I was going to marry him. Because it's just like, this is all I need. I just need someone that I can be safe with and ugly with sometimes. Not like yelling and screaming, but just like if a certain sound or a certain image or experience makes me just like break down in uncontrollable sobs, he's going to be there to give me a hug afterward and not be like, what's your problem? Why are you doing this? Why aren't you getting over this? Like, this is weird. He's just like, are you okay? And he just there's been more than one time where he hasn't even said a word. He's just come and given me a long, long hug. And that's all I needed. And that's, it sounds like hopefully that's basically the kind of person that she has. And that's the kind of person that we should all have. Whether or not we've been through a terrible relationship, that's the type of care and concern we each need to have in our relationships. So. And respect. Respect is really the important word. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Play.
To take him, but he's been nothing but a blanket for me. Yeah.
Well, Ed reveals to us that he met your new boyfriend.
Yes.
He's a hunk. He's a pretty good-looking guy.
He also said
Oh, then it
this.
goes to that.
My concern is if, and we all have things that we need to work on and deal with. And if we don't, they're going to rear their ugly head. And that's my fear, is that it won't last because Liz will not have dealt with the same things that I have to deal with.
What's your
Oh
response
my
to that?
word, that
don't
just
think
made
that's
me
what that's
recoil, and I'll backtrack a little bit so we can hear what she's saying in response to that. Yes, and I have had a similar experience after the breakup where there was a conversation of, Jessica, make sure next time don't blah blah blah. And I and there may have been more than one conversation where maybe I would have come right back with, well, you shouldn't blah blah blah. But I do distinctly remember there was a conversation at some point where the person said, make sure you don't in your next relationship, blah, blah, blah. And I think I was at the very early stages of starting to actually process what had happened. So I didn't really have a name for things yet, and I didn't really know the why behind a lot of things yet, but I knew I had to not respond with a knee-jerk, well, you blah, blah, blah. And I didn't even fully know why. I just knew I needed to not do that. So I responded back with, well, no, I won't be doing that, but what are you going to do differently when you enter into your next relationship? And I said that because now that I look back on it and I redefine it, I think with some level of accuracy, hopefully, it was a power play. It's a power play for people like Big Ed, or in my own experience, whether or not the person realizes that's what they're doing, they're trying to take the role of the more knowledgeable, more wise, more understanding, experienced individual, and they're trying to say, this other person that I was with that it didn't work out with because they were just too much whatever, they're going to need to learn this or that to be able, and I know these things because I have more understanding of how all of this works. And it's an attempt at gaining superiority to an extent. It's probably subconscious. They probably view it as just honesty, but it really is a subconscious ploy at, they're here, I'm here, or here in Big Ed's case. So what I was subconsciously trying to do in the moment when I just responded back with, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to choose to do that's different, rather than me telling you what you should do? I was subconsciously trying to not continue in the pattern of a power play. I was not trying to best them. I was continuing the conversation of, all right, well, if I've got stuff to work on, you probably do too. But in that moment, I was no longer trying to be like, well, you think you can tell me what to do? Well, you know what? You should do that. And blah, 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 blah. Which I think honestly was a lot of the relationship. I don't view it as a real relationship. That's another story for a different time that'll probably never be told on the internet. But anyway, yeah. So when Big Ed said this, I was just like, ooh, nails on the chalkboard. Like, just shut up. Just shut up. Sit down and grow up. Well, he is sitting down. Grow up.
Is that it won't last because Liz will not have dealt with the same things that I have to deal with.
What's your response to that?
I don't think Ed's walked past him here.
What do you mean? Expound on that.
Don't give advice if you can't take your own advice.
Yep.
I don't appreciate those comments. It's not like he's been broken up with me the same amount of time I've been broken up with him.
I love that color on her, by the way.
I think he needs to take that self-reflection. Whether a relationship is set out to fail, like, if you're already speaking on my relationship, there's obviously something you're still holding on to. So
Probably true.
Well, I am curious for learning purposes for all of us. Relationships are our biggest teachers, right?
Yeah.
And you're 32.
Yes.
You've experienced 2 failed marriages.
Yes.
And a failed engagement.
yes.
When you look back at those relationships, is there a pattern that you notice or that
Yes.
you recognize? What is
So that comment also was another big, I learned so many, I cannot tell you. I don't suggest anyone get into a really unhealthy relationship, but I gotta tell you, it literally changed me. I mean, all the lessons that I learned from that unhealthy dynamic have literally turned me into a completely different person today. And I process the entirety of life differently than I ever did for the first 20 however many years of my life. So I had to learn experience does not inherently equal maturity. Ideally it will, but it doesn't always. And that is weird. Because Liz, she's been through more than one failed marriage, has a kid, was engaged to Big Ed, blah, blah, blah. And she's basically my age. She might actually be a little younger. I don't know when this was filmed. I'm 33, she's 32. And she's just now coming to realizations that I also recently kind of had to learn myself, it seems like, in a lot of ways. And yet she's lived way more life. But that's just an example that unless and until we actually pause and say, how did I actually get here? Why did I get here? What does this actually mean? Where do I need to take accountability and change my own self? What do I need to understand about this person or these other people? And how do I define that properly, not through emotion, but actually properly understand that? Until we do all of that, we're just going to keep running in the same hamster wheels of life, of making the same mistakes and being confused over and over. And you can spend decades doing that and not be any more mature than someone in, let's say, their early to mid 20s that has done that processing and learned those lessons. And then, they've figured it out. No, I don't know how to do most things in life, but that's whatever.
I love red flags.
you love red flags?
No, there is a pattern. There is a huge pattern. I think there's something for me that I think since I've always been like independent too, but then growing up, I've always I grew up so fast that I felt like I didn't really have even maybe like a father figure in my life too. So maybe there's some type of issue there. So
Oh yeah.
I would probably
Oh yes.
daddy issue.
Now I know that I've got all kinds of different viewership, so I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers, but my personal opinion is that the healthiest family dynamic, when possible, although I know divorces have to happen sometimes, healthiest family dynamic is a father and a mother at home jointly raising the children, jointly working on their relationship to be as strong as possible, and then by that strong relationship filtering down into the kids. Ergo, the video I made about Jojo Siwa's mom. She, I don't believe, is doing that with her husband. It is now filtering down and damaging the kids, whether or not the kids even fully realize it. So I totally lost so with her saying that part of her issues might be not having a father figure, 100%, 100,000%. Sometimes that has to be the case. The only safe situation is for there not to be a mother figure or a father figure. I get that. I respect that. It breaks my heart. But absolutely, that will make it will create difficulties in learning and growing and processing life in a healthy way. And also, I was going to say to this part of the video, I am worried that she can't really put her finger on why she keeps repeating these unhealthy relationships. It sounds like she's in a great relationship right now. I hope and pray that this is somehow a much healthier relationship. But honestly, I really think that she needed to have done the extensive therapy and whatever she's needing to answer that question specifically, to then jump off of that solid knowledge to then pursue her next relationship. Otherwise, it's kind of like, well, maybe this, maybe that. For me, I studied and I learned and I talked with others and I grew and I understood this is why I got into this thing. This was the thought process I had. This was the naivety and the inexperience that I had. But because of that, I ignored this, I did that, I behaved that way, I was really selfish and immature in those ways, blah, 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 blah. All right, here's how I'm not going to do this again. These are the decisions I'm going to make versus not make, which will, Lord willing, keep me from ever potentially repeating that. And she's going to get into boundaries a little bit, I think. But yeah, I made sure, by the grace of God, to do all the hard work and the processing to understand how did I get here so that I never ever get back there. And it's not in like a defensive, like I'm putting all my walls up kind of way. The reality is when we do the healing and the processing, it has to come from a place of humility. It is humbling. It's embarrassing and terrifying. So if we learn to view it through a lens of, all right, I've got a lot to learn, let's start now, and really take it from a place of humility, then the lessons that we learn aren't going to be this defensive wall. It's just wisdom. It's calm wisdom. That's what it is. So I hope that she can learn that.
There just has been a pattern with me being in more of a submissive relationship, being kind of told what to do. It's easy for me to take direction. I can give direction, but definitely in my relationships, I'm always letting like the man be the upper hand and the more controlling person. I've never felt like an equal, and I know that I know that there's a pattern there.
For sure, and that's another thing I meant to mention is consciously, subconsciously, whatever it is that we've got going on, others know. And I don't know how people pick up on things, because I think people subconsciously pick up on things, people consciously pick up on things. When we go into a relationship, not realizing that we actually are saying, I am not technically worthy of blah, 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 and I am actually going to be willing to put up with blah, blah, blah. Even when we don't think at the forefront of our brain that we're like that, but our actions prove we technically think that way about ourselves, the wrong individuals will know. And I'm not saying that I think there's a whole bunch of people out there that are like geniuses and are like, ooh, that is an insecure, naive person, I'm going to prey on them. I think so much of this is subconscious between both parties, but the preying upon parties will consciously and subconsciously pick up on the naive, vulnerable parties, whether or not anyone knows any of this is going on. And that's how these relationships keep happening. When we enter into dating dynamics saying, this is what I'm okay with, this is what I'm not okay with, and if you are not going to provide me with this sense of security, I'm totally fine on my own. Not in like a mean, like confronting way, just a factual, like, I do not need you. I would love to have you in my life. I'm excited that we're dating, but I don't need this. And if it proves to be unhealthy and imbalanced, I'm perfectly okay without it. When we truly have that in us from a place of humility, like I said, not an arrogant defensiveness, the preying upon people, the people who will prey upon others will see that and have no interest. And they might label it as like, oh, that person's like way over self-confident and like they think so highly of themselves. But the reality is they realize, I don't stand a chance. I don't stand a chance. So
Definitely boundaries. Yeah, I have set a lot of boundaries. I speak my mind all the time. I don't hold things in.
Good.
I don't wait for. I think the hardest part is addressing something that bothers me right then and there instead
Good.
of letting it bottle up.
yeah, very good.
I
Very
definitely
good.
feel like I'm in a free space now to be able to speak my emotions and say how I feel. But
That's crucial.
yeah, as far as the pattern, I've definitely not chosen.
Yeah.
I've not chosen like healthy relationships.
Yeah.
I think I've been.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a balance. Sometimes it's not the right time and place to have a really hard conversation about like, hey, this really hurt me. Sometimes we do need to wait to an extent to find a good, healthy time to have deep conversations. And that's something I'm still learning. I was not tactful in the past. I wasn't tactful with my words. I wasn't tactful with my timing at times because I just thought of something and said it and wanted to say it and felt that I was totally within the right to say what I thought in the moment. Now I'm trying to learn to pause and be like, is this actually something worth saying? If it is, how I say it, is that going to potentially be offensive? Is the timing do I have to say it right now? Should I maybe wait a little bit? But never shoving things under the rug. There should always be a mutual acknowledgement within a marriage and a relationship that if someone is uncomfortable about anything or everything, not everything, can't speak. If there's anything someone's uncomfortable about, they always have the freedom to talk openly about it. And there is going to be a respectful conversation held and some sort of conclusion is going to happen. So I'm glad that she has that, at least.
Relationships where I'm also helping the other person change. Not
She's trying to
myself.
find.
Yeah.
We can't
Yeah,
change
people
people.
you have to fix.
Yeah, I like to fix people.
We can't.
Thing, girl. That's a common thing. So what do you say to viewers who feel like the experience you had with Ed, calling off your engagement, that was a
he's so
traumatic
rough.
experience.
It was very traumatic. for
And
me,
then
yeah.
shortly after you find yourself in another relationship.
Yes.
What do you say to viewers who say, Liz, have you taken any time for you?
I say
So
that.
that's where I want to get back and say too. I wasn't looking for a relationship right away.
I wasn't looking for love. It
I
just
still
found me.
knew this person has allowed me to go through all my emotions, allowed me to change. He's never asked me to change. He never said, hey, like there's been times I've actually cried to this person
Yes,
over
yes.
Ed
Yeah.
in the beginning because like of friends and stuff. Always a support system.
That's so good.
So
That's healthy.
Even recently seeing Ed at the tell-all, I
As
don't
long-
need permission. I wasn't given permission, but I was told you need to go through every emotion, say what you need to say, do whatever you need to do to close this chapter.
Yeah.
I think that takes
Yeah.
a lot for someone to come into your life and do that.
It does. It does.
I've never been asked to change. I work, I can go out, I can hang out
It's a
with my
level of
friend.
confidence for someone to come into your life and say, hey, I wasn't there for those moments that have now created this trauma response, basically. But whatever you need to process that, I am here for the result of that. It's in a way they're not taking on your trauma, but I love to always use the equation when I'm talking about my husband. It's like he holds my every part of my heart in both his hands so delicately. Everything that makes me me, my flaws, my imperfections, the few things that I'm okay at in life, the joys, the highs, the lows, the fears, the things I'm insecure about. He holds them like this and will not drop them. I strongly believe that with every fiber of my being. And so it takes strength to say, hey, if you've got pain and anger and confusion and you're doing everything you can to try to process through it, but there's still some tendrils of working through that, I will hold that with you. And I'm not afraid of that in you. That takes a lot of strength and maturity. And that's what I love so much about my husband. He's a wonderful man. And it sounds like she found a guy who's hopefully willing to do that. So hopefully this is really, truly a good relationship for her. It's just very fast.
I can talk about how I'm feeling. So who's to say where I would be if I didn't get in a relationship right away, but I definitely feel like I've healed a lot. I'm smiling, I'm glowing, I feel motivated every day to get up.
Well, do you have any moments where you miss Big Ed?
There are moments now where it's like I never thought I wouldn't be with him. I'll never regret loving him. I thought I'd be married to him right now. But I would be lying if I said there weren't moments when I miss him or certain things. Because he was my friend. We started off as friends. I didn't just fall in love with him overnight. That took a lot of time.
Yeah. Did you buy a wedding dress?
I can't believe we'll see. It'll be interesting to see as time goes on. I mean, whether or not she'll ever even talk about this again. It'll be interesting to see if she still kind of has those somewhat fond tendrils of memories of like she won't regret the fact that she was with him and sometimes she misses him. I mean, maybe that's normal. I don't really know. I think when I've thought through it myself, like, is there anything that I miss? I think the only thing that I really miss is the pseudo sense of innocence that I had, but really it was just naivety that brought me into an incredibly unhealthy dynamic. So I sort of miss the days where I didn't understand everything that I now understand about just the darkness that exists in people, but I also wouldn't give that up for anything because it helps me understand life a lot more than I ever did before. So I think that's the closest thing I come to missing, but I don't miss that person because none of it was real. None of it was genuine, and it was all very damaging. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about her missing anything with Ed because it's not even like they just weren't the best match. I mean, he's a terrible guy. So I hope as time and processing and healing, Lord willing, continues to happen, I hope she eventually is kind of like, I don't miss anything with him. But
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
What did you do with it?
It's still hanging in the closet.
Are you gonna keep it?
I've kept it right now, not for
would
sentimental
burn it.
reasons. I'm holding on to it at a moment because I have a big move coming up. And from there, I want to donate it to a charity.
Well,
I guess that's sweet.
you and Ed, you guys, I think, broke up 13 times throughout your relationship?
Oh, more than that, but I don't know how many.
Okay.
It's
Is
so
this it?
unhealthy.
Could you ever see yourself getting back with
No.
I don't see myself ever getting back with Ed. I actually don't ever see myself being friends with Ed.
Okay.
Say it and mean it.
There was a lot of hurt
Confidence.
in that. So
Yeah.
No.
we had our closure at the tell-all, and that's where it needs to stay.
Yeah, and believe
What
it.
can you tease about the tell-all?
It'll be the first time you see me really happy.
What's the biggest lesson
I hope
that
she
this
is.
experience has taught you?
The biggest thing is I'm never going to let anyone back into my life who's not going to be a good example or role model for my daughter. So she's the one that I'm focused on. If my energy means a lot, like as a mom around her, I got to be the best mom I can for her. So I think that's what I learned, because I could have just done so much more for myself and her if I would have just, worked on myself a long time ago.
Yeah. And I will say your daughter is so sweet, so kind,
So cute.
and well-spoken.
I just want to apologize.
Okay, we're not going to listen to him. He's just, oh my goodness, he is a pickle. We'll just call him a pickle. But that's great. I really hope that she does take this time to really learn how to be a solid mom for her daughter. I can't remember if it's this interview or a different one. Her daughter has met her current boyfriend, and I really am worried about the in and out men in this girl's life. I hope and pray somehow she has some form of stability in her life, that she does not pursue the same patterns her mom did. I don't know about statistics, but I would bet there's a much lower likelihood that she won't continue in her mom's patterns, but I have full faith she's capable. Sounds like she's a brilliant young girl, and I have all the best hopes for her. And I hope that maybe this is going to be a turning point for Liz, and she will really use the motivation of just wanting to set the best example possible for her daughter. To motivate herself to make wise choices. And I hope and believe it's possible that she could learn through this how to set those boundaries that are required to find the healthy guys in the world who will actually be a net positive in your life rather than a net negative. So sorry this was so long, but I just felt like, oh my goodness, there are so many things I can relate to. So hope you enjoyed, and thanks for listening. Okay.